Hey guys, welcome to Jerry's Live. As always, I'm your host, Amy Gardner-Dean, and we are on episode JL152. It's crazy. Jinx. And even more exciting and special, it's Katie's birthday today. So I think you guys should just, as you do chat, intersperse little birthday cakes or champagne glasses or wine bottles, kind of scatter them all the way through the comments on the show, because I think that would be really awesome, and Katie would probably get a kick out of it. So it is her birthday today, and I'm sure she's probably not going to tell us how old she is, but she's still way younger than I am. So
I'm 38.
She does not look 38 either. So cherish those moments while you have them, Katie. So today we're going to be playing with the Charvin water-soluble painting sticks. They're pastels that are dry, but you can wet them and actually use them like painting sticks. So they can be used in a multitude of ways, and they're a great little mixed media find for people that like to work with different medias. But we'll be using them today, just drawing and then wetting them, and playing with them on some of the Fabriano Studio watercolor paper. That's their kind of, it's a cotton percentage. I think it's a 20 or 25%, 25% cotton paper. So it's kind of their value series, but it's a nice paper, and it's got a great tooth for pastel. We'll be using some of the Creative Inspirations Durahandle brushes. This whole set packs down into this aqua tote, folds flat. Then you've got your brushes, you've got your paper, you've got this. All this got carried here in a horrible rainstorm because we're having the effects of a tropical storm coming through in this bag, and stayed nice and dry in my car, even running out through the rain when I left home. So it's a great, fun little travel kit that's super inexpensive, like crazy inexpensive and fun to play with. So we're going to be doing that today, and doing kind of a fun, exciting, we're going to take something that's kind of a mundane still life, and we're going to spice it up, because we should. Because we've all been really cooped up lately, and this is something fun. And before I get started, I just wanted everybody to indulge me for a moment. My oldest son, I've got two boys, but my oldest son, Riker Quigley Dean, graduated sadly virtually from college this Saturday from Olivet College in Michigan. He has been quarantined in Michigan since all this started, in the hopes of being able to go back to school, but unfortunately they had to do online classes until the end of it, and then had to have, for now, a virtual graduation ceremony. They are fully intending on doing something for them at a later date, and his senior show even had to be canceled. He was an art major. So this kid used to, a long time ago, when I had a public studio in downtown Raleigh at 18 months, would sit and draw on the floor of my studio with watercolor paper I taped down. Never intended on being an artist. He never, always wanted to be, a paleontologist, then a psychologist, then a psychiatrist, and then a doctor. And then took one art class his senior year in high school. Loved it. Ended up saying maybe medical illustration would be a nice way to do the two. So he entered college doing a split major with pre-med and biological illustration, and then consequently took his first painting class, and it was all over from there. So he spent 4 years as a studio art major, got a dual degree, magna cum laude, with a 3.8 from Olivet College. I know, it's Mr. Smarty Pants.
Underachiever.
I know. With studio art, with painting and sculpture as one of the concentrations, and then biological illustration as the other. So, super proud mom that can't be there, and I just wanted to send him a shout out about this. He applied to grad schools, which usually fresh out of college you do not have anything that happens. Was accepted to two, was offered 2 full ride scholarships, and made a decision a few weeks ago. He's going to be going to Ohio University, which is a very prestigious college. He'll be 5 hours closer to home. and he's going to learn a lot there. So thank you to Don Van Auken, to Thea Eller, and Gary Wertheimer for teaching that kid and getting him where he is today. And I realized driving in here that he's the 5th generation of artists in the family, that my great-grandparents were both portrait artists in Chicago, and that's something that they would probably get a big, huge kick out of, this kid. So congratulations, Riker. When I see you, you'll get a big hug when it's finally safe someday, but just good job. So, all right, so let's play a little bit. Thank you for indulging me in that.
Proud mom moment.
I know. Very much so.
What you had to be.
Huh?
You know, what you had to be proud of.
I know, right?
You know?
Hey, that kid's better than I am already. So, just saying. Someday, he's going to set the world on fire. All right. So, decided to go with something more fun. This is just a little kind of old school dust brusher for Katie's. It's really, it's a little, you brush the dust off of, you know, doing your drafting or something like that. But I thought wings are significant with starting new chapters and taking off and kind of going from there. So we're going to take these. They've got some great earth tones, but we're going to actually take these and make something much more colorful and play with this. So before we start our little still life, we're going to show you kind of a couple different ways you can use these pastels, and then you can see how I'm going to use them. But just to cover the ways that that these can actually be used, because I know this is something that's going to come up question-wise as we're kind of doing the show. So we'll just kind of cover those to start with, and then people will be able to kind of go from there. Now, the one thing about these is the box is a nice, big, sturdy box, and hard to open for me. These can't open in a bag as you're traveling. It's got this little sleeve that you can slide the box into, which is awesome and usually doesn't happen with boxes of pastels. It's got 2 trays. So we've got 1 tray, and there will be people that order these and say, I did not get the full 48. Guess what? If you go to the side there's a little kind of place you can grab. You pick up that tray, and then there's a little paper and foam insert, and you've got your second tray of some really beautiful kind of delicious darks, which if you've used pastels, you usually don't get a lot of really good quality, deep, dark colors. So that's really cool about this. And I'm going to, just for ease of kind of moving these around a little bit easier, I'm going to slide this in there. Now, I did do a color chart that then subsequently I spilled water on, but you can see, but I mean, this was just kind of doing it before I did the sketch at home, right? So just to see what colors I wanted to use and what was going to work well for what. This is how easily these light up, is just with a splash of water. It really will, you know, over the dry pigment really does a fantastic job. But you can see they're actually really vibrant dry, which is not usually the case with water-soluble pastels. They're usually very dusty, usually not that vibrant. Then when you actually, you know, kind of activate that, the water media portion of it, then they'll be bright. But these are as kind of beautifully bright dry as dark. So let's take a couple bright colors and just really see. I love this color. It's like I dressed to match it or something. Just to see kind of what you can do dry, how bright this is. We're gonna use some watercolor paper, Katie, because
About to get wet.
yeah. Well, just let's make it. Look at how bright this is. You can actually pick that up. You can use it from the side. That's just from going over that section. People will always ask, well, that's great. Can you use it where you wet the stick? Yes. So I just rinse the brush. Let's pick a different color because that'll be easier to kind of see this on. So we've got purple, so you're going to be able to tell the difference. So I'm just wetting that stick with my brush. Can already pull that color up. So it works, you can use it, you know, if you're tentative, especially doing plain air, pulling these out and using them as sticks. If it's super windy, you can just keep them in the box and actually use them almost like a pan set of watercolors. Okay, let's take one of these bright blues. So I'm wetting the stick. So look at that. That's just with dipping the stick in one time. You can get that much richness just from it being a dry stick to a quick dip. That water will automatically take effect. Let's try one where we're going to go ahead and we're going to wet this section. People always ask this as well. So this is why we're going over this for now. Can I, you know, draw on a wet page? You most certainly can. Now, obviously, just like with a watercolor stick, you may, it may be less controllable, but that's kind of the fun of it. So let's take kind of a nice pretty teal. See how much deeper that is drawing on that wet surface versus just dry there. You can get some wetness and pull, but there's still some manageability to it. I mean, I can still get a hard edge even with that paper. Here it's still kind of pooling when wet, so you can see that that gets a little deeper there, but I can still see that kind of sheen with the texture on the paper. So you can actually get, you know, to me that's some decent control out of it. So number of ways that these can be used, which makes them really fun tools. You could just do it dry. It's a pastel that lights up, so.
We already have a couple of questions.
Sure, let's hit those quick.
They're asking if they're oil-based.
These are not oil-based. These are, although it's called a water-soluble painting stick, it's just a regular dry stick pastel. Like, it's slightly more, it's not pressed as hard as like if you've used Conte crayons or new pastels. It's that type of, like, if you've used Prismacolor new pastels, which that used to be the only really hard stick pastel on the market, you know, 20, 30 years ago. I heard about that long before I was born, clearly. You know that kind of what that entails. These lay the color down a little easier than those new pastels do. Those kind of were hard and really worked better for underdrawings, where these kind of will lay that the powder dry down. So they're just a clay base. They're not oil based.
That actually transitions very well because people are
Answer
asking
two
how
questions.
they compare to the Neocolor aquarelles, I can't talk today, or the Inktense Blocks.
Inktense blocks, I mean, are kind of like the Inktense sticks, but in a block form. Same kind of concept where you can use them, you know, dry or wet. Use them as a pan, use them on paper like this. The biggest issue is, as far as difference, these are actual pastels. These are actual chalk-based pastels. Inktense are actual ink-based pastels that have, you know, some solids in them to be able to use them like a stick. But those, once they're dry, they say they're waterproof. I mean, I've known some people that swear by that, and I've known some people that are like, yeah, for the most part, those are waterproof. I'm not sure with social media if you've ever heard anything real different than that, Katie, but everybody I've ever talked to has said that, you know, they're relatively, where these once you've wet this down, I mean, I can take this, it's still slightly damp. Let me get another brush. But it's water based, or, you know, like it has a gum Arabic base, so you can still lift it just a slight bit. I'm still able to move a little bit of color, but it's actually pretty good. I'm really having to scrub that paper to lift. That's better than like a traditional watercolor would be re-wetting.
So it doesn't feel like a soft pastel would. Like you don't have to worry about smudging it and stuff like that after it's dry.
No, nope. I mean, that's really rubbing it. There's a tiny bit of dust, but that was a little dust part that didn't get wetted. So once it's on there, it's on there. Now, with this drawing that I did, I did a drawing to advertise this show. Some of this has been wetted and some of it wasn't, because I really wanted to see in doing this, this part has been wetted. So I can take this part and it's not really doing very much. This part up here, and I'm going to show you so you know if this is something that you're looking to buy, this is what the difference is going to be. This is going to be like a regular dry, soft pastel or hard pastel, in that I can take that and move that over there. So it can be used like a pastel, where you can actually, you can buffer, and we talk about not doing this with fingers, but this is showing you some of what this will do. You can take that dry portion and move it around, but the part that's the wet portion that I wet down isn't going to do that. So, to show you what I mean about how dry this is, I'm going to wet it down. Look at how deep that suddenly got. There were layers of a darker color on there. And see how it just picked that up? So this was all dust. I hadn't done anything to wet this down. Now, kind of some of the fun of this is, okay, so in knowing this, you can do underpaintings with colors and come back over it and then use them as a dry pastel and never wet them down. So that gives you kind of that ability to have a more liquid format underpainting, but then have that dry format over the top painting. Now, that being said, it's still a harder pastel. And harder pastels, because they're hard, are a little bit more brittle, so you tend to get a little bit more crumble with those than you do something like a really soft pastel or a handmade pastel, right? Where it's almost a wetter feeling. Even it's not wet, but it's a wetter feeling application because it's so soft that the powder really tends to stick kind of in and of to itself, if that makes sense, which did not sound like it made sense the way I said that, but it's a different tool in your arsenal. I mean, this could be used never as traditional pastel and just for fun and for a watercolor kind of use only. It could be used dry use only. It could be used for mixed media where you could be using it over things. I mean, this could be painted onto any surface you could paint regular watercolors on, right? So it's giving you options. Now, if you've got a water-soluble oil pastel, that's going to have that different kind of lipsticky, much more kind of fluidy, melty, crayon-y kind of a look, where this is going to be that drier, much more traditional pastel look. So, and oil pastels are not drying oil. It's not an oil stick like an oil paint that has a drying oil in it. So oil pastels, even if they're water soluble, still never fully oxidize. You might be able to make them water soluble with how the formulation is, but it's still going to move and you'll still be able to rub it around. So it's not like that's buying you anything as far as being able to transfer, the medium accidentally like I've done with the fingertip here. Are there any other questions that...
Lots of questions.
Okay, that's fine.
Are they archival?
They are... Charvin says that they're light fast. So if Charvin's saying that, it should be light fast. They've tested them. It's just like a regular pastel is going to be. It's not acid because it's stick form. With pastels, your substrate is as important if you're wanting something to be long-term archival as your actual media that you're using on top of it. So this is a, paper that's designed to be acid-free. It's got a higher cotton content. It's not a paper pulp, low-end, very inexpensive, just paper, watercolor paper. So as long as you've got an archival support, this is going to have really high archivability with it, right? So, and that's something that I think a lot of people, there are people that will buy expensive paint, but then they buy really inexpensive substrates or a cardboard, a canvas covered cardboard board that's not archival. So it's all in the how everything is going to play together. So yes, short answer, these are always consider your substrate going with it.
Okay.
More questions?
Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
Okay.
I'm sure some of them you're kind of they're asking about
It's fine.
techniques and stuff, which I'm sure you'll get to a little
Yeah.
bit, but I'm just trying to get to the, let's see.
Yeah, those we can ask when we do the drawing. And you'll have to, I don't have watch on. So just
I'll let you
keep
know.
me updated on time because we want a half hour to kind of play and doodle with them. So.
What fixative would you recommend, and does it vary depending on whether you use them dry or if you use them wet? Good question.
That's a great question. It's just like regular pastels where you don't have to use a fixative if you're going to be matting them and framing them under glass, right? So you're just going to need to make sure that you've got some space between, especially if it's dry, that matte and the glass with some spacers to keep it from, where it's got that. We did I'm not sure what episode that is, if the girls can find that and post that, where we talked about how to frame and matte pastels, and that there's a way to get a little bit of kind of where the dust, if it does fall, goes down in the picture and not in front of the picture. So for that type of thing, that's what you're going to want to do. Now you can use either very carefully in super light coats, but spray fixative the quality is just as important in that as it is in what the materials are that you're using, because the quality of a spray nozzle is you want something that is the finest mist in the world, and you want to follow the manufacturer's directions for shaking it up. If it says 5 minutes, there's a reason they say that, because it's not going to perform properly if it's not shaken up for 5 minutes. So it's going to seem like you've been standing here forever shaking it. Set a timer on your cell phone, because 5 minutes is way longer when you're shaking a can. But you can use that. Always do multiple coats, super light. Just hit mist. Don't use hairspray, for God's sakes, no. Everybody always says that. Aquanet. I used Aquanet back in the day. You want to know what my drawings look like now? Well, that's what, okay, it was the 80s, Katie. Long before you were born, Miss 38. So, that's important, because you don't want it to yellow the paper and the other things that it's on. But any pastel fixative that's used for soft pastels, like I think it's the Latour that Sennelier makes. I think Krylon makes a soft pastel fixative. Look and read exactly what it is before you buy it. If you're going to be using it like pastels, those brands are designed specifically for that, okay? Generally, if it says retouch, or not retouch, if it says just workable fixative, it's designed to hold layers, and usually for graphite or charcoal or other things like that. Sometimes retouch, depending on the brand, can dull your colors. Okay, so this is still a pastel. It says, that it's pastel painting sticks, but it's still a dry hard pastel. So go with pastel stuff. Now, if it's been done with water, it's functioning like a watercolor, so you're not going to have the issues as long as you've done it over everything of it coming off. So just mat it and frame it like a regular watercolor would be.
You got the workable fixative, which was my next question, but I'm going to let him hold off so you can get to painting
Okay.
a little bit. And
It's
then
like,
once you get into
like
it,
I saw it coming. All right.
Yep. Well, I don't want him to miss it, because there's
Yeah. No, so we've got this little wing, because it's just kind of a fun little item. And what we're going to do is I've got it over here. I'm going to pull it over here so I can see it a little bit better. We're going to make it kind of some natural colors, but add some brightness. So we've got some cool pops of color, okay? And we're going to kind of stop where the white is on the wing. I'll turn it kind of like that for you guys, so you can see it. Trying to fit more stuff in here. All right. Ooh, there we go. There's some color. They can see almost all of it. Okay. So let's put these back in here. We might use some of these, or we may not, because there's 24 to choose, or 48. See, they make a set of 24, but the 48 is the best. Why would you not pick the more colors every time? Okay, so I'm taking, actually, you know what, I'm going to use a lighter gray so that this isn't going to show up. I'll be able to see this. Where's my scrap piece? I'll be able to see this, but it's not going to be quite as bright when it's wet. Oh, wow, you can barely see it. Well, I think it's because of the lighting in here. No, I can see it. Yep. Okay. So, but I'll be able to see my drawing, but once it's wet, it's going to be because it's kind of a toned down color. And I'm just drawing like I would if this was any pastel medium. I'm just want the information. This isn't important as to what this looks like long term. I'm just giving myself some visual notes. Drawing is as much about visual notes as it is about it being correct, because that's what you go back and you build on. And actually, don't hate me, I'm breaking the stick. It needed a sharper edge. So just so I can kind of pull that and tell where my outside edge is. Get a point here. The points wear down on the sides a little bit as you go, which a little sanding block will help kind of sharpen that. I really do think these are hard enough where you could use an X-Acto if you wanted to kind of whittle it. But it, you know, safety first. If you know you're not a good person with sharp things, don't use sharp things. Now, if I was working on this at home, I'd have this on an easel that's tilted towards me, so any little bits of dust would fall off. However, that doesn't work so well with cameras here. So when you see me blowing this off, this is don't do as Amy does. Just watch and say, I'm not going to do that. It's all okay. Or if you know, don't mind vacuuming your studio right after you're done, I guess you can do that too, but okay. All right, so we've got the general shape of the wing here, and we're again ignoring the handle. So I think I'm gonna just get some pops of color. I'm gonna start with some natural tones first, and then I'm gonna bring in a little bit of pops of color here and there, and we'll kind of see what we can do about making this just a fun, cool drawing. We want this illusion, kind of the look and the feel of the wing without having to necessarily be correct, because we're just wanting to have fun and play with a little bit of color. And the cool thing is I can see, because of the studio lights, I can see light coming through this side and then light coming through this side. So I'm actually seeing kind of the, it's like semi-opaque, like light coming through the wing, which I'm not going to address, but it's really cool. I wish we had more time, because that would be fun to do. I can tell I used this one. Also, this set was used to make the color chart and was used to make this other artwork, and these are still look pretty much brand new, other than a couple dusty fingerprints, which don't let me ever commit a crime. I will leave marks everywhere, you know. Okay. So again, don't have to be perfect. Just trying to get that. Because these are not flight feathers, they don't have those harder edge points, you notice, in there. These are just kind of the support feathers that kind of cover up where the kind of ends of the bird's kind of almost finger bones are in there. All right. This is a really pretty blue, and I'm going to take this. Again, don't be mad. It's okay that we break these. I know everybody dies a little bit inside when that happens, but all right. So let's break out a little bit of water so we can kind of see what's going on with this. I'm going to wet the areas that I really like the lines, and I'm going to kind of ignore the other areas that I don't. I'll probably use some different brushes at some point, but I've got these brushes, even though they're kind of a paint and sip style of brush, because you can leave them in water, which don't ever let Amy catch you do that. You could, if you were a very bad artist, leave them in water, and it's not going to rust up the handle, or with wood handles, make the lacquer eventually crack, right, and peel like we've we know everybody knows somebody that's a bad brush hygiene person. So the edge of these is razor sharp for water, which I love. For being a paint and sip brush, this actually has a great edge. It gives you some pretty good control. It's a decent, synthetic brush, and it's a set that should you be carrying this around with you and traveling or whatever, and you accidentally lose it, you're not going to be out, a sable brush price. And it's got like a little wallet, a little kind of poly wallet that you can carry it in, which is really cool. That'll keep them from getting dinged around in your carry bag.
We have sold out of a couple of those brushes.
Of this
that set, yeah.
Oh, okay. But there's other ones. This was just, you can get like the set of rounds, you can get the set of flats. This is just kind of a nice, it gives you multiple, and unfortunately that's kind of another side effect of COVID, right? Is that stock gets sold down because people are looking for things to do, and we can't always get stuff in right away. Know that we are trying as quickly as possible, but just, some places their warehouses aren't working, or
they're not shipping, or their employees aren't working.
Literally, like Savoir Faire, the exec is running the forklift. So it's just, everybody is trying to do their best to get products. So, so you may need to substitute out this, or you can buy the brushes separately if you only need one of these, and you don't use rounds, or you only use rounds and you don't want a flat. You can get just an individual brush. And
I just checked on them, and most of them, it looks like there's just a couple out of stock, which is what's making that one set go. So there's tons of them available individually, and they're as low as like $1.66 or something crazy. $1.09.
That's awesome. All right. So see how that lights up just with that little bit of, it's just a kind of a blue gray, that really light gray. I don't even know if you can see the really light gray. That's why I chose it for the drawing, because it's got enough white in it where it's not really easy to see for the undermarking. So we've got a basic wing. So I'm going to kind of make it natural colors, and then we're going to go in with some fun color pops. So if people have things they want to see, or just, other questions, please jump in at any time. That's perfectly fine by me. And I'm going to let the water be kind of wet to kind of pull in some of this. You're going to be able to see where it's wet and then where it's dry, so that you'll be able to kind of see. I'm going to use one more dry up in here to kind of lay in some more solid color, and then because these natural colors, the natural earth tones, when you put the brush on them, they pick up pretty easily. So see, because of the stick form, you can use pastel skills, right? Or you can use just drawing skills with the point. If you're not used to taking that pastel and using the little stick side, you've got the ability to work with it more kind of as a pencil would. I'm using the pointed round so I can kind of get a little bit more detail kind of as we're going along here. Forgot to do that. Now next week, I'm going to say this now, I'm going to say it at the end, and then we will remind people on social media. Next week, child 2 of 2 is having a micro graduation with, they are only doing 4 children at a time, and only doing parents or guardians with them, social distanced, and they're filming it, and then going to put somehow the whole school together, and they're doing it over a set time. So unfortunately, the only time that child 2's friends could do it was Tuesday, and child 2 doesn't really know as much about his mother's schedule, and said yes. So we're pushing it forward to 4:30 so that I can see my last child graduate high school. So we will do it at 4:30 from 4:30 to 5. The pastel episode, we'll make sure to remind you until you probably are really annoyed that we've reminded you so much, but just so that you guys won't miss it if you did want to participate live. If not, and you hit it at 5:30, I'm still going to be here annoying you, but it just won't be live at that point.
Just a reminder that if they would like to be notified when we go live,
yes,
click those 3 little dots or the bell, or I don't know. Click the things that make the things happen on the video, depending on what you're watching on, and it
click
will
all of the things.
Send you a notification when we're going live so that you won't miss it.
Good. Yes. And if they, I know that the time has been changed on our schedule. If you go to jerrysarorama.com, and you click on, you type in keyword Jerry's Live, it's got that changed on there, so it should put that on your calendar if you're using like a Google Calendar or something.
And I'll put up a reminder on Monday to let people know as well.
I'll make sure to put up a reminder in the group several times, and I will remind them on Monday and Tuesday morning and afternoon as well, just to, because we like you and we don't want you to miss us if you wanted to play along. Okay, this is a kind of a natural beige, and I'm sorry that we do have to do that, but this whole missing all these virtual things, and this kid's going to the Air Force, so there won't be the potential other graduation things. Yeah, well, and you know, his whole senior year has been, there's no prom, there's no, not that child too probably cares about the prom, but just you know, all the friend stuff that's, you know, this may be the last time he sees his friends, because people go different ways and don't always have the same schedules for coming back, so that's why we're doing pretty happy art. All right, so we've got a wing, right?
Can you remind people that all you're using is water?
Okay, yes, this is only water bucket. This is all a kit. What's the kit under? Is it like, it's under probably $30?
Yeah.
Maybe? $35? It should be very inexpensive. Water, the water bucket that folds flat, so you can put everything in this. Wing, and obviously easel are not included, but 4 brushes in a little brush wallet. The Fabriano Studio paper. That's a pad. It's got 12 sheets.
And that is one of the things that has gone out of stock today.
Okay.
But every other size is available.
Okay, so just, it's a, yeah, one of those size things.
The kit's under $25 right now.
Yes. 48 colors. These are water-soluble. They're called pastel painting sticks, but they are a dry pastel that activates with water because they put gum arabic in with the pigment and clay. That's how we're getting lovely washes with this. That's how we're, you know, able to move it around, but you can also build on it like, you know, like if you just joined us, make sure to go back to the beginning where I was kind of taking what was dry and wetting it down so you could see the difference. You can use it completely dry if that's all you're interested in. You can use it completely wet if that's all you're interested in. You could just keep it in these cases and use it like a pan set. I mean, you don't even have to ever, if you're one of those people that, I love watercolor and I love putting pretty colors down. I don't like touching things and I don't like wearing gloves. You can just use this as a watercolor set. You can just reach over here, grab color. Let's find a nice dark blue.
That set itself is $14.49 on sale right now.
That's crazy.
48 colors.
For 48 colors. I mean, look at, that's a very dry pastel being activated just barely with a brush. And look at how deep of colors you can get with that. Just wetting it down.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Somebody was asking, how are these different from adding water to a soft pastel? If you use these as like an underpainting and then added soft pastel over it, would it be a mixed media or would it work?
Pastel to pastel is still pastel, right? But when you're introducing water, it's still pastel. It's just being wetted down, and most quality pastels that are soft pastels have gum arabic in them, right? Soft pastels. A lot of the hard pastels typically don't, though. That's, I think, what's so different about these. I don't believe that any other hard sticks, to my knowledge, are water soluble other than Inktense. So because you have to actually put that in when you're manufacturing the stick, to be able to put some gum arabic in. Okay, I'm just drawing some. Ooh, that's really cool. That's really vibrant when you get in just an area that's still that little bit wet. I'm just gonna start putting some random colors in while I wait for more questions. This is that really deep blue that gave so much pop. I like that. It's almost like a Prussian blue. Questions come up, just ask away.
Do they need to be sealed? Like, do you have to seal them?
As long as, we talked about that just a little bit ago, and I know people pop in and out at different times. As long as you're putting this in a mat, if it's dry and it's still a little dusty, matting it like you would regular traditional soft pastels with that little bit of a buffer between it and the mat so the dust isn't falling out down into your picture plane, right, or getting all over your mat. You don't have to put any fixative on this. You don't have to wet it. You can just keep it dry. It's when you're, you know, people will always want to be modern and make a medium something that's not, and you know, try to do this on a panel and then expect that over time this is not going to have an effect, you know, by not framing it and just by putting fixative on it. That's, for that short term, I guess you could do that, but you would need a fixative. Long term, I don't really know how that would go, because you'd have to put so much fixative on it, and then consider the fixative might seal this out, but dust and dirt and things like that are going to build up on the outside of whatever that is, and over time that's going to discolor the work. Or, you know, if somebody cooks bacon too dark and you get smoke in the house, or what, dumb thing to say, things everybody does. I'm just telling you, and you get buildup over time. Like, think about your kitchen cabinets. If close to your stove, you have to wash them quite a bit, because if you're like me, you maybe aren't the best cook in the world and make a lot of mess. Lots of stuff, you know, because that goes up in the air, right? So it's just, you have to, you know, be conscientious about A, how you're doing the work, where you're going to hang it, what you want the long-term archivability to be, and go from there. And pastel, we've talked about this on the pastel framing show, and I think the girls have put that up. You're never, ever going to want to put pastel under plexi, because it's got that little bit of plasticky charge, and it will be a dust magnet. Not good. So yes, don't do that. So see, just some little pieces of color where I'm taking that and wetting it. Watch this. This is going to be pretty. Look at that color. Obviously a phthalo there.
If you were going to enter these into a contest or a gallery show, what would you classify them as? Would it be mixed media? Would it be pastels? Would it be... I would assume pastel unless you're using anything else, correct?
Probably just, I mean, probably pastel painting, because A, the rules are kind of a little less hard and fast about that, because it's, when you're adding water, it's suddenly not really a drawing, right? It's a painting. I mean, when they say pastel painting, when you're referring to that, that usually means everything on the piece is covered with pastel. I think unless you're introducing some other medium other than this, I don't think it would be considered mixed media, because it's just the pastels, and you've added some water. Water's not a medium, it's a vehicle. So, yeah, I think that's probably the best. Let's see what these reds look like. I just want to... And again, if you're just joining us, these are dry pastel sticks, but they're called a water-soluble pastel painting stick that Charvin makes. So right there in the name is telling you this could be a water media if you wanted it to. If we have a lot of people that are new, I can go and we can take another piece of paper and we can show again kind of what we did with the with using it kind of wet, dry, the stick wet on the, and look at that vibrancy. This is very oddly freeing too. It's just like,
well, some
this
people
is just
were
for fun.
asking,
It's just
like, why you would pick this over traditional watercolors or traditional pastels, and it's because it's fun.
Look what the vibrant. Okay, I don't. In all art, you and I both know, we feel compelled to make something that is the best thing ever, that looks better than anybody else's. There's some weird, freaky source of pride that we just have to. And then we always hold ourselves to this crazy standard that we never meet, which in one way is good, because as artists, that's what drives us. We keep striving to get better. We keep striving to get it right, okay? I think the day that you suddenly do something and you're 100% satisfied with it, it's kind of like, you know, hitting the perfect golf score or whatever. What are you going to do to better that, you know? To me, that would be like almost like, well, what do I do now? Hang it up. It's always that improvement. It's always that, you know, but it's still always that feeling where we got that fight, where we want to make something that's like perfect and beautiful. This does not, I feel like getting this out and playing with this, it doesn't owe me anything. It's something where I'm taking that, yes, I've got a creative persona, but let me tell you, I am one of the dang most competitive people you will ever meet. I am competitive about everything, to a detriment sometimes. Doing something like this, for some reason, turns on that right brain completely and makes that left brain part that's always, but I can do better. Yeah, but I can watch this. It takes that, it puts a gag on that little sucker's mouth, and it makes it so that I'm just enjoying. I would never use these colors together in my life. Like, just this, for some reason, I'm able to not care, and I'm able to experiment, and I'm able to play with it, because this isn't a media that I've mastered, because this is something that's completely different than how I normally work. It's just, it's a very, very freeing feeling. So, I mean, that's, you can make it as fine art as you want, or you can make it as play as you want, but either which way, it's cheap as dirt. Not cheap in a cheap sense, you know, not quality. It's something that in purchasing it, you don't have to feel like it owes you anything. It's not sitting on the shelf and it wasn't a $300 investment.
You're not afraid to mess them up.
Yes, where either it sits there and you don't get them out, or whether you feel compelled to everything you do from here to the dawn of time, you better get your money's worth out of it. Because I do that too. I think we all tend to do that. More so I'll use it, but I'll beat it to death because I...
Or you're saving it for something special.
Yes.
I have to imagine these are really great if you're having some kind of artist block, or you just can't figure out what.
Oh my gosh, yes,
you know,
right?
Something that's different to break through. They just.
Right? No, I think that definitely would be the case. Okay, don't do as Amy's gonna do. Pretend you didn't see this. Okay.
Do they lighten as they dry? Is there much of a color shift to them?
No, I don't think so. If anything, I think that they deepen. The color gets it with that water and just kind of working into that surface. I don't feel like this is lightened up at all. I feel like it's...
Is it mostly dry in spots, or?
This? I'm working, there's wet here, there's wet there. This is dry because I hadn't done anything up here. Now this one obviously, okay, so the ones that you can tell have white in it, anytime you use this type of medium and it's like, it's not grayer. I don't know. I'm going to say duller. It's not the technical term, and it's not correct, but it just has that kind of less vibrant effect, right? It usually means with pastels that they've put white in it. Okay, the color just doesn't have, like, this obviously doesn't have the white. This one has a lot of white. So this isn't going to be as like punch you in the face vibrant as this orange is going to be. When you're using that and wetting it down, this turned into a very subtle color versus, you know, this one right next to it. So that's why before I do anything, and we talk about this all the time, and this is where Amy says do what she does, because you should do it. Color swatch. It doesn't matter if it gets splattered or whatever later on. You've had the ability to use them. You've gotten them out. You've seen what that color looks like when it's wet to dry. I'm going to put it down on the table so they can see this doesn't fade when it gets wet. It just intensifies, right? They're very intense.
And then I think they missed it earlier. They would like to know if the colors reactivate if wetted again. So if there's a dark color you want to lighten up.
Okay. So
to blend, can you?
So after it's wetted,
can you? Wetted and dry.
Okay. We did that with the thing and kind of were able to lift color somewhat. Okay. Once it's on there and dry. If you're looking to like, okay, I didn't like that color so much. You're gonna have to let it all dry. Use a hairdryer or whatever. Make sure the sheet doesn't have any moisture to it because it will change how the pastel lays down under it. You can go over it, and if you want to mix colors and you didn't like how it turned out the first time, mix the colors dry, then before you activate it, okay? And then it should sit down. We were trying to drag a color that was already in the paper and dry, and it was harder with this really vibrant pink. You could pull it some, but you couldn't pull it. That was already dry. It was a wash across the color that was drawn across. That was all I was able to get from it. So it's not like you're doing this and then you're going back and forth and going wetting and pulling and pushing and pulling. I mean, we can try that with, I guess this didn't get wetted. Let's try, I'm going to wet this down. We're going to come back to it in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, remind me. I want to make sure all of the dry part, the pastel that's sitting there got wet. So we're not picking up a dried part, and I want to work it into the paper because this is a good color. This is kind of a staining color, so that should give us an idea of how easy that's going to pull up, okay?
While that is drying,
Quick trick. Yes.
Somebody on Facebook asked, would it wreck my good watercolor brushes if I use them with these?
No, wash just like you would do with watercolor. Once you get done painting, you're going to, at the end of your painting session, hopefully good brush hygiene, you're going off to the sink and you're washing it with soap and then letting it air dry, right? A soap for brushes. You're not taking your good watercolor brushes and putting them in any dish soap or anything like that because Amy would be sad. So you can use these. They're pigment that's going to wash right out of your brush. I mean, if you really put in a lot of really granulated stuff, you really push these pastels hard into the paper, you were picking up a lot of stuff, just wash it more diligently. It's going to come out. It's water-based. This isn't like, oil paint and things like that get up in that brush that really work their way into the hair and then aren't able to come out because of that. This should not be a problem at all to wash out of good watercolor brushes. And those are brushes that you're already used to. So you're already used to that control. I touched my face. Sorry. It's hard to, I've been wearing a mask around here, pull it off right before we start, and then I'm like, touch my face. You're already used to those brushes and how they perform. So in some cases, that's giving you that advantage over doing this because you already know how that works with your watercolors. You've got the use of that tool down pat. So it will make this a little, I guess, the learning curve faster probably for you. That's what I'm going to say. Because these are not brushes I use on a normal basis. So it's a good way to see, how they work in a true, this is Amy using these kind of, that she's used twice, maybe, ever. Yes, it looked like there's another question. All right,
do these get completely smooth for a wash, or do they stay slightly grainy?
Okay, it depends. That's a good question. Do they get smooth with the wash, or does it depend?
Depend on the paper have anything to do with it?
Some of it depends, I think, on the color, because some of the colors, just like watercolor and things like that, you're going to have some different pigment particle size. Everything's not milled down, or any paint, right? Pigments are milled to where they should be for their maximum kind of effectiveness and beauty, right? So these seem to be very similar. It seems like the earth tones are a little grittier, a little thicker. I can feel the pigment in them when I'm pushing it around more. Kind of like you do with regular soft pastels. With the other colors, it's not as much. So it just depends. It seems like some of the really deep blues that are probably like an ultramarine base, a little grittier, which that's typical for ultramarine blue. So it's just, again, when we say color swatch, this is why you do those. So you can see, how am I really having to, you know, this is a nice one stroke. Am I really having to work that pigment into the paper to kind of take the, from this texture being cold press, am I really having to scrub to kind of get rid of those lines that I'm making, right, that show where I've drawn it? Do I want this to be, you know, baby butt smooth color? This may not be the medium for you if you're wanting it to be baby butt smooth, because this isn't something like an ink or, you know, a dye-based concoction that is going to, you know, already be super smooth, ready to go. I guess that's probably, I think, probably the easiest way to explain it. But again, it's okay for you to try new stuff.
Yeah.
This is very relaxing to me. And that color is really pretty. I really like that new color that I just added. It's kind of like a little bit of a cerulean blue, I think. So, do we want to, let's see what happened with this real quick.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to move this just because this is still pretty wet. All right. So it's still really wet down at the side, so we're going to do right in here in the middle. Move these pastels over a little. And let me get this brush, because the sharper edge, I can really pick and really try to pull at it to lift it, all right? Now,
it's a flat.
Again, yes, it's a flat, or a bright, I'm not sure. It's probably bright. Flat, but it looks like bright. Okay, technicalities. You are, with cotton paper and things like that, where lifting works way better because it's a much more durable surface. You may be able to move these more on. This is a 25% cotton paper, so it's like a really good quality kind of student grade paper, or, you know, if you're on a budget for professional paper. So it's going to perform better than if this was just a really inexpensive, you know, student paper pulp paper. Okay, so I can scrub on this more effectively. So I'm taking the brush and I'm scrubbing and I'm trying to lift and pull color, and you can see that I can do that. Is it pulling it off? Is it super duper bright? It's not. I mean, I can feel right now the paper starting to want to lift, okay? Just from years and years of working on watercolor paper, I know it's at a point of where that paper is very saturated and I'm really putting it hard on that edge that's a pretty sharp little edge with a synthetic. I don't want to go any further than that with trying to pick that up. My paper is going to start to kind of lift and get all fuzzy and tear and get mushy. So you can see you can lift the color some. Is that enough to do more than soften this part in the middle? No, you can't take this once it's already dry and actually pick it up and use it like paint from there. You can soften, you can, you know, pull a little color, but that's about all you're going to get out of it.
Good segue, because somebody asked, can you mix two colors in a palette prior to placing it directly on the paper?
In a palette, like
or like on an extra piece of paper. Can you? Let's find out.
All right. So let's pick. Let's take a green and a blue, because I think that will be easier. And we don't have a palette, so we're gonna. I'm just gonna put them down so we've got the dust and everything. Okay. And then I'm gonna move the dust to the side with the brush. We're coming up on our hour, so we'll do this real quick, but I'm just letting you know if you've got any other questions, go ahead and get them in now. And also, we will be doing the show next week at 4:30 p.m. so that I can go watch. My son's name is Elam. I just refer to him as child number 2. Just, it's a family joke. Graduate in a little tiny micro graduation ceremony from high school. So that will be the one time we're going to do this. Just, I can't miss child 2. So, all right. He puts up with me. All right, so we've got the dust. I'm going to kind of tap it down here. So we've got the pigment. So this would be like if you just had the dry color, right? I think that's probably the most diplomatic way to do it. Okay. And then we can try, we'll wet some paper and we'll see from there. So this is dry pigment. This is a lot of it. So I'm going to put a little bit more water here. Definitely would work. See, that is definitely not either one of those greens. It was very much one green and very much one blue. We used this and this.
Good question.
No, that's great.
Take it outside the box.
Okay, so that's what we use. This kind of almost like a chromium oxide green. And wow, that's almost like a, it's not ultramarine, almost looks like ultramarine violet and cobalt or something mixed together. So those are those colors individually. That's what that made. Now we just scratched two colors on top of each other. Let's see what happens with that if we're going to still get that same color. And look at that. So grinding those two colors together, I can see the green picking up a little bit more because that was kind of at the bottom. But look, that got that too with an undertone of green from kind of really grinding it into that texture. So you definitely could mix either like that. Let's take some water and we'll just color the water.
Actually, Patty just mentioned something that is a very good point. It's 4:30 Eastern Standard Time.
Yes. Oh, thank you, Patty.
Thank you, Patty.
Yes, 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. Okay, that color. That color. Wet, they kind of make the same color. Blend it. Okay, there's a lot of powder. Look. So really, there's lots of really easy ways to mix, to work on the color. Just, it's super vibrant, super fun, super inexpensive. You could take it totally fine art whole hog. You could just play and have fun with color. They're non-toxic, so it's something that kids can use with you where you're not gonna... We talked about my son at the beginning. They just graduated from college. Literally, he had, at that time, an old Yarka pan set because they had a non-toxic set, but it was their artist paint, but it was like in these little soft pour pans, which I still have his little set. The last one, he went through like 4 or 5 of them, but kids that get a hold of good supplies can go places with it. It's not like you're not dumbing it down with, oh, you have to have this, oh, you have to have that. That gets disappointing. Bad, boring color, dry, stuff. This is really vibrant, really beautiful pigments, but student price, right? Kid price. So, and lots of fun. And I mean, I don't like stuff on my hands. Very little's on my hands. Look, Mikey.
One more question real quick.
Sure.
What would happen if you shaved them into like a cold wax painting? Would they cooperate? Is that a test and see?
Yeah, that would be a... I love questions like this because it gets that kind of... gets those creative juices flowing, the what ifs. I don't know why it wouldn't work because the cold wax is just a suspension, right? So any powder, if you can use any other powdered pigment, I don't know why it wouldn't work. Now, until this is wetted down, it's not activating that gum arabic. So I don't know if cold wax being mineral spirits based is going to break it down as much. It may be chunkier. That's going to be my guess. Just from having used a lot of different stuff through the years, I don't know if it would soften into a fluid enough kind of suspension in the cold wax for what you may want. You may want it to be like that. But again, try it out and see. Right? Okay, so hopefully you've seen that this is a fun little kit. You can do neat things with it. You can be much more realistic with it if you want. You can be just very expressionistic and colorful and have fun. It's all up to you. It's all up to your creativity and a little bit into just letting loose. Trying some new things, okay? So next week, Soft Pastels, the little kit, 4:30 Eastern Central Time this time, guys. We will put reminders everywhere we can think of so that you don't miss us live, but we'll still be there at 5:30. It'll just be done and start back over, okay? So we've got we had the postcards contest where it was just trying to do something to brighten people's day, something that would be postcards, art that can be mailed. And we've got winners, 500, 250, and $100 gift cards for these. And do you have them third through first?
There's the number on the back of them, but yes, third through
Oh,
first.
well, that would be
In a corner.
Ah, okay, perfect. All right, so I'm guessing that's yes. Okay, so third place. I'm going to put them on the table so you can just zoom in on that. Third place, beautiful landscape, and I love the scale items shown. That makes it much easier to know. Is Tanya, and I'm sorry, Tanya, because I'm going to probably butcher your name, and I don't mean to, because it's a beautiful looking name. Is it Kokidko? Kokidko. I'm going with that. Of East Hartford, Connecticut. You are getting a $100 e-gift card for your beautiful postcard landscape. Then, number 2. Let me make sure I've got number 2 here. Don't want to tell somebody they've won. Yep, okay. Won something that they've not. Carol Middleton of Fort Mill, South Carolina. A $250 e-gift card. I love this. This seems very hopeful. The light streaming through the trees. Beautiful colors. Again, postcard size, so you can see kind of there. And this one just was, this was like Katie and I both said, this is super cheerful. And it's Katie's birthday and she loves squirrels. So you probably inadvertently, this is fantastic. You can see the little postcard with the micron next to it and some cute little cutouts there. Jessica Burbank of Bellevue, Washington, $500 e-gift card for something that would cheer anybody up. That was just really happy and fantastic. So
That was to brighten somebody's day by sending something in their box,
there were some really great ones, but this was just the epitome of what that was about. So, and there's a little heart for a nose. I didn't see that before, but now I'm seeing the little nose as a heart. So happy day. All right, so next week, you're going to have to reiterate what it was, Katie, because
It is painted rocks, kindness rocks.
okay.
So it's hide them, surprise someone.
Kindness rocks. That doesn't mean paint a painting of a rock. That means take physical said rock, do some artwork on it. Something that would be cool, that if it was just out somewhere, that would be cheerful and make a passerby smile, or want to collect it and take it home, or take it somewhere else and put it somewhere else for somebody to find.
Or find for more.
Yes. So you actually have to have a physical rock that's been painted. That's something cheerful and happy and kind and, you know, like be awesome or anything just like that. So the topic is kindness rocks, but it requires a physical rock. So put on your creativity hats for that, because I think that of everything that we've done, this is something that kind of levels the playing field for all skills, don't you think? That just knock yourself out with just something really fun and creative, okay? And cheerful.
Yeah,
All right.
it's all about bringing some happiness and
In unexpected places. So, all right, great. So next week, what's the time? 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. Yes, that's where we will be. We're doing the Soft Pastel Kit. That's the little, very inexpensive kit that we did an episode already. I think it was GL 146. And everybody had such a fun time and worked and played along with us. And if they didn't have them during class, a lot of people talked to me and said that they bought them and went back through it again. We're going to take that exact same set and do another artwork. So if you already have the set, you're good to go. You've got the supplies. If you've got other things at home playing along with us, if you live close enough and you get an order in now, you might be able to get it in time to go ahead and have to play with us. So that will be what we're doing next week.
I just want to reiterate for them, if you can't make it at 4:30, We'll be live from 4:30 to
Mhm.
5:30.
Yes.
But immediately after
Thank
we end
you.
the live stream, it will
Yes.
process and upload, and you can still ask questions. We'll still go back
Yes.
and answer them. It just won't be live.
Yes, and I'll go back and answer those questions after the fact, just not right then because I'll be running to graduation. But yes, if you can't make that 4:30, we're doing these from the studio now, so they get, as soon as it's done, they process and they post as soon as Facebook or YouTube kind of takes the few minutes or whatever that they need to do that, and it will be there for you to watch at any time. So never fear if you can't make it at 4:30. We will still be here. You're not getting rid of me that easy. So, all right. Well, thanks guys for all these great entries in the contest. Good luck for next week. Give it a try. Everybody's got a rock somewhere outside their house. So or in a plant in their house or whatever. So give it a try and see what you can do. Take care. Stay safe and well, and we'll see you next week. And happy birthday, Katie.
Thank you.